And welcome to the Tech Guy's Midnight Court. This is your host, Pete the Tech Guy. Half a door will travel, although obviously podcasting from my house, I'm not traveling very far, and I'm delighted to spend about 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes with you this morning here on our first of two podcasts. On the second podcast will be on Friday mornings. The second from now on, our Friday podcast is going to be at 9:15 a.m. rather than at 12:35 a.m. So that people who get up early in the East will have a better chance to listen. And on the Friday podcast, we will take phone calls. I do still have my 800 number from my old radio show, so we'll take phone calls. I don't know if it's going to work through the live stream. So what I'll basically do is it'll come to my home phone because I've programmed the 800 number to do so. Program it for the podcast. And we'll put it on speaker and see if it works out. And if it doesn't, well, then we'll know. But until then, that's the plan. But either way, delighted to have you. And remember, you can check me out at DaTechGuyblog.com, DaTechGuy blog.com, the Tech Guy blog on Twitter, the Tech Guy blog on YouTube, obviously, where you're catching me here. And we have the Tech Guy's Magnificent Seven. And of course, the Tech Guy. I myself, as under my regular name, Peter and Jemmy, hosts on WQPH 89.3 FM, Shirley, Fitchburg, every Saturday, Your Prayer Intentions, where we pray for your prayer intentions. So, a lot of ways to find me. Hopefully, you're happy to see us. Hopefully, we can give you some information that you like. And today, we are going to give you a little bit of history and a little bit of rewriting history, so to speak, but not so much rewriting history as using history to give an example of what's actually happening. Now, lately, one of the things that we've seen a lot of is the mainstream media seems to be very willing to back up Iran. Say, oh, we need to drop sanctions in order to help Iran with coronavirus. Very willing to believe China's words concerning coronavirus. Oh, China has this all tied up, and oh, by the way, it's racist to call it a Chinese virus, even though they were calling it the Wuhan virus all the time during impeachment. Once that came off, once that weapon against Donald Trump was gone, needed a new one. So playing that card, and of course now backing up Russia, who's claiming to be doing very, very well. Now the Russia thing is especially interesting because the media was so adamant about Russia. Trump is working with Russia. Russia's evil. Russia's this. Putin's horrible. Trump shouldn't be talking with Putin. And yet, suddenly they're backing up Russia on all this stuff. And this caused some confusion among some people who were very much used to the Democrats weaponizing Russia and trying to claim that Russia tried to get Donald Trump elected. And I think there was some very, very funny tweets along those lines. Twitchy wrote about it a little bit. And Sean Davis, of course, tweeted out. Sean Davis, of course, is a national treasure. He writes for the Federalist. And he pointed out how strange it was in a tweet that the media was lionizing Russia after spending the last 3 years going after Russia. Russia's evil. Russia's this. Russia's that. And Davis's tweet was, of course, CNN is running interference with Vladimir Putin. Of course it is. And this might seem a little odd to some people. In fact, what even might seem odd as well was Jake Tapper had AOC on, and AOC quoted the lie that Trump called the Wuhan virus a hoax, and Tapper didn't call him on it. And not only did she not call him on him, he was tweeting that, I really thought about calling her on that, but I decided against it. It's like, in other words, it's not just the media realizing there's a problem, but that they were doing something wrong, but thought about it. Oh, I thought about it. I mean, if he didn't think about it, if it never occurred to him, and let's face it, AOC said that because she didn't expect to be, fact checked by CNN. Why should she expect it? Well, this reminded me of something. The explanation for this is actually very simple. And it reminded me of a very important moment in history, a similar moment in history, when the New York Times had a fellow in charge by the name of Horace Greeley, and he didn't like the way Abe Lincoln was running the Civil War and thought that Lincoln was worrying too much about slavery and so forth. And Lincoln sent him a famous letter on August 22nd, 1862. I won't read you the whole letter, but I want to read you one paragraph. And this is the paragraph from the letter to Greeley. I would save the Union. I would save it in the shortest way under the Constitution. The sooner the national authority can be restored, the nearer the Union will be the Union as it was. If there be those who would not save the Union unless they could at the same time save slavery, I do not agree with them. If there be those who would not save the Union unless they could at the same time destroy slavery, I do not agree with them. My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that. And remember that Lincoln did do that because the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slaves in the border states that had sided with the Union. That it waited for I think it was the 13th Amendment. And so it's worthwhile that he said that. As he put out later, what I do about slavery and the colored race, I do because it helps to save the Union. And what I forbear because I do not believe it would help save the Union. I shall do less whenever I shall believe what I'm doing hurts the cause, and I shall do more whenever I shall believe doing more will help the cause. I shall try to correct errors when shown to be errors, and shall adopt new views so fast that they shall appear to be true views. And I have here stated my purpose according to my view of official duty, and I intend no modification of my office. Express personal wish that all men everywhere be free. Yours, Abraham Lincoln. And I thought about, again, the Davis tweet, and I said, well, what would CNN, what would Jake Tapper, what would the owner of CNN say to those who were saying, well, now you're quoting Chinese propaganda, now you're quoting Russia propaganda, and you're quoting Iranian propaganda? And so I decided to make a little parody rewrite of that letter. And I'm going to read you that parody rewrite now, which is that if you want to read it yourself, it's at my site right now. It's called CNN Letter to Sean Davis with apologies to Abe Lincoln and Horace Greeley. And I made it a point to put the apologies part to make sure that they don't decide this is fake news. Well, yes, this is intentionally a parody to illustrate what the media actually is up to. So if someone decides to report this video, he's giving disinformation. CNN didn't say that, send that letter. Well, yeah, and the British government doesn't actually have a Ministry of Silly Walks, for those of you who do not know, for those of you who know your Monty Python. So I'm saying this up front, so if someone decides to play games with it, you know why they are. So CNN offices, Atlanta, March 22nd, 2020. To Sean Davis at the Federalist. Dear sir, we have just read your tweet of the 21st, addressed to ourselves through that medium, and previous statements through the Federalist. If there be in it any statements or assumptions of fact which we know to be erroneous, we and other mainstream media do not now and here controvert them. If there be in it any inferences which we may believe to be falsely drawn, we do not now and here argue against them. If they be perceptible, it is in an impatient and dictatorial tone. We waive it in deference to a fellow member of the media, although as you are on the right, you don't really deserve such deference. As to the policy we seem to be pursuing, as you say, we have not meant to leave anyone in doubt. We would save the Union from Donald Trump. We would save it in the shortest way under the Constitution or outside of it. The sooner the national authority of our allies and the deep state in general and the Democratic Party in particular can be restored, the nearer the Union will be the Union as it was before those horrible days of the internet, Rush Limbaugh, and Matt Drudge in the days before he decided to join our noble cause. If there be those who would not save the Union from Donald Trump unless they could at the same time attack communist China, Putin, Iran, and save the nation from the spread of the coronavirus, we do not agree with them. If there be those who would not save the Union unless they could at the same time destroy communist China, Putin, or even Iran, we do not agree with them. Our paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union from Donald Trump, and is not either to save or destroy communist China, Putin, Iran, or even the coronavirus. If we could save the Union from Donald Trump without helping communist China, Russia, Iran, or even the spread of the coronavirus, we would do it. And if we could save the Union from Donald Trump by directly helping Communist China, Russia, Iran, and the spread of the coronavirus, we would do it. And if we could save the Union from Donald Trump by helping Communist China, Russia, Iran, and the spread of the coronavirus in some cases, and hindering Communist China, Russia, Iran, and the spread of coronavirus in others, we would also do that. What we write, broadcast, and report about Communist China, Russia, Iran, and the coronavirus, we do because we believe it helps to save the Union from Donald Trump. And what we forbear because we do not believe it would help us to save the Union from Donald Trump. We shall do less to help efforts to fight the coronavirus in the U.S. whenever we shall believe that what we were doing hurts the cause of defeating Donald Trump in November, and we shall do more to help the efforts to fight the coronavirus whenever we shall believe doing more will help the cause of defeating Donald Trump in November. We shall try to correct errors which are shown to be errors in our efforts in obtaining that goal of Trump's destruction, and we shall adopt new views so fast that they shall appear to be in aid of that effort to destroy Donald Trump. We have stated our purpose, shared by other members of the media on TV and online and in print, according to our view of the official duty of the media to destroy conservatism in general and Donald Trump in particular. And we intend no modification of my expressed personal wish that all men everywhere could be free of Donald Trump in particular and conservatism in general. Yours, CNN. Now, I think that's an excellent summary of how these people feel. And there's been a lot of talk about why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep doing it? Well, the media only has one pitch. And one of the things I've talked about, I'm a big baseball fan, and I've been pushing people towards the Dynasty online baseball, which is a great pastime, by the way, if you've got nothing to do if you've been shut down because of the coronavirus. The people at Dynasty are offering a free month using the code USA2. By the way, they're not advertising with us. I just like it. So even if you are a wacky leftist who hates me and are going to down arrow this podcast, give it a try. If you like baseball, you will love the game. I'll even let you be in one of my leagues. I don't care about your politics when it comes to this game. It's a fun game. We should all be able to enjoy it. But the point being that in baseball, there was a big scandal, and this is building on what we've just talked about. Until the coronavirus destroyed the season, the biggest scandal that was going on was the scandal of the 2016 Houston Astros, who had been stealing signs illegally by using electronic devices and signals and so forth. Now, I have particular opinions on sign stealing. I actually think all sign stealing should be legal, and they should just raise the mound, which will give the pitcher an advantage. But the reason why sign stealing is big, legal or illegally, is that a batter only has a few fractions of a second to decide how to swing at a pitch. If he knows what kind of pitch is coming, if he knows it's a fastball, if he knows it's a curveball, if he knows it's a changeup, he has that much more of an advantage than if he doesn't know and has to guess based on the pitcher's movement or whatever. So if you know what's coming, unless the pitcher is Walter Johnson, who always threw a fastball, threw the fastest fastball there's ever been, has the record for most shutouts in his career and most one-hitters in his career, and most 1-0 losses in a career, by the way, because he played for a pathetic team. They used to say about Johnson, because he was constantly throwing a fastball, you knew what was coming, but so what? Unless you're Walter Johnson, if you're the batter and you know what's coming, you have a big advantage. So there's a big scandal about that. Well, if you were to apply that to the mainstream media, the mainstream media has become a pitcher with only one pitch, and that pitch is orange band bad. They don't have any other pitch. Now, early in the administration, the orange band pad pitch was effective to some degree. They were able to get Jeff Sessions to recuse himself. They tricked him pretty bad, which could cost him a Senate seat in his attempt to win it this time around. But after a while, not only Donald Trump, but other Republicans were able to see this pitch coming. And because they were able to see this pitch coming, because everything was framed in orange band bad, you saw the pitch coming, you could hit it. And the media is not Walter Johnson. The media cannot just blow it by people anymore, not with the internet out there, not with Facebook out there, not with Twitter out there, even with the censorship that Twitter uses, not with YouTube out there, and even with the censorship Twitter and Google use. there's too many opportunities for people to get other information and to see when they're wrong. So when they just keep throwing orange man bad, it doesn't work. And what's really funny about all of this is you might recall if you were watching our podcast last week on Brer Donkey, Brer Media, Brer Rhino, and Brer Trump and the coronavirus, briar patch. We talked about how, at least I talked about how I thought that this coronavirus stuff was a trap for the media. And the media have started to figure it out. In fact, we've already seen pieces in the Washington Post and pieces in and Rachel Maddow call on the major networks to stop carrying the president's coronavirus press conferences because he's not saying the right thing. He's not telling the truth, blah, 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 blah. Now, I think this is hilarious, but it's also rational and logical. And it's rational and logical because the media has figured out something. That when Donald Trump is up there at those press conferences, and I was listening to one I haven't really listened to a lot of them. I listened to a few. On Thursday, I mentioned this on Friday that I drove up to, actually, I don't think I mentioned it on Friday. Because we went right after the podcast. My wife and I drove up to Hampton Beach and Salisbury Beach and up the coast. You can't really go anywhere and do anything, but you can look at the ocean. And so I couldn't take my wife anywhere for her birthday. I'd actually taken some vacation time because I was going to do some stuff with my wife and couldn't do anything because, everything was closed and so forth, which is kind of sad, but, it happens. I mean, if this is the worst thing that happens in our life, then we've had a pretty good life. Well, when we were at Hampton Beach, we parked and we're looking at the beach and we listened to the president's press conference. And the president is putting out the experts out there. They're answering questions. The president is optimistic, and he's constantly giving credit to other people, the American people, the various companies, and he's always seems to be complimenting people for the job they're doing to try and solve this problem. And the press, during those press conferences, it's like the first press conference I ever was at with Donald Trump. When everyone was asking questions about why do you suck? Why do Republicans suck? What are you going to do about the fact that you suck? So when I asked a question about the crowd who was coming, Mr. Trump was, what a great question. What a great guy. Who is that guy? Why didn't you ever ask me a question like that? Because just asking a normal question based on my own reporting was so different than everything else that was coming. And the media has figured out that because this is a critical crisis, are watching these press conferences. People who aren't political are watching them. And they're getting to see President Trump in his own words. And they're getting to see the media in their own words. And the problem is, it's very hard to spin the president when people have seen him. It's very hard to say something false about what the president has said when you were listening. It's like that old clip from that old movie with Walter Matthau, who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes? I think, right? It's very hard to pull off. And the media is caught between a rock and a hard place. They loved the coronavirus. They loved all this, and they pushed panic because they thought panic would hurt the economy and thus hurt Trump, because they figured panic would hurt Trump. But this is Trump's wheelhouse. He ran a company. He's a leader. Now, he gets attacked because of the stakes in the university and so forth, but a lot of that were various companies buying his name. And he was just being used as a promoter. But he knows how to deal with problems. He's a problem solver by nature. And all of this, a crisis like this, where what you have to do is have the best people in place evaluating things and making decisions and making executive decisions, especially decisions being made. No, I got social distancing. Don't worry about that sneeze. Especially decisions being made after dropping regulations and so forth. This is making him look great because he's leading. And we actually have the spectacle. Hot Air is reporting that Joe Biden is going to start doing his own daily broadcasts about the coronavirus. Now, this is very funny because Biden has no authority to do anything. All he can do is criticize the president and bring on people to criticize the president, but there's no authority. So, first of all, there's no incentive for anyone but partisan Democrats to listen. So, you'll probably hear a lot on Twitter about it. But remember, 90% of Twitter represents 10% of reality at best. So, I mean, Twitter's like a reverse iceberg, as Glenn Reynolds put it. You can, most of it, what's below the surface is nothing, and everything is above the surface. So, it's going to become a joke. So the press has put themselves in this situation because every day people are worried. In fact, at my own job, we had a meeting today. I work Sunday to Thursday. And they're saying because of the situation, maybe hours will be cut. We don't know. And of course, the governor of Massachusetts is supposed to make an announcement tomorrow. And they might tell people stay home unless you're vital. And our warehouse probably isn't vital because we ship a lot of clothes. And clothes aren't vital. I mean, clothes are vital, but I don't think that they'll be considered vital. Now, my own opinion on this in terms of whether or not it should be done, my gut is still that some of this is overreaction. But if you're going to do this, if you're going to shut things down, better to do it sooner. Better to get it done, have the 3 or 4 weeks, take care of it across the country. Get it over with. Better to do it all at once and right away. If we're to be done, it's best to be done quickly. And again, I'm not an expert. The president has a bunch of experts around him. But I've reached, and how do I say this? I don't trust a lot of government. I don't trust the media, but I trust the president because he's come through, and because he's come through, and because of that, I trust him. And if this is the right move, this is the right move. And there's one other thing about all of this that I want to bring up before we finish today. And this is going to be a short podcast. The other thing I want to mention is something I saw at Mass today. Now, of course, I couldn't go to Mass because there were no Masses around. So I found this Mass that was live streaming from this small village in New York. The priest was singing. He has a decent singing voice, and he was flamboyant, shall we say. But he gave a first-rate sermon. And the sermon was about how he talked about the greatest generation. I really don't like that term for two reasons. First of all, my father who fought in World War II and my mother who lived through the Depression wouldn't call themselves the greatest generation. They would have been talking about their own parents. I actually think that the baby boomers and subsequent generations' use of the greatest generation is an excuse to not live up to for not living up to those ideals and not living up to those standards. Oh, they were so much greater than me, so I shouldn't be expected to be like that. And he talked about how many people have volunteered and asked how they could help and have been willing to jump in the time of crisis. And I think you're going to see a lot of the best of America over the next month. And there's going to be a lot of positives that come out of this. And I'm very Catholic, so let me point out that God often uses a crisis to let virtue flow. A lot of good things will happen, and a lot of good people will step forward. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And part of that I'm going to be writing a little bit about that during the week, because it also, one of the interesting side effects of all this is that if you are a snowflake or a person who demands safe spaces or a person who goes to a $70,000 a year college and considers themselves oppressed, this has been a disastrous time for you, because all of your so-called oppression is being shown for what it is, which is nonsense. And we'll talk a lot more about that in the next podcast. But that's all we're going to do today. It's just 25 minutes, 30 minutes today. I want to thank anybody who was watching today live stream. I know this time of night, most of the people on the East Coast are asleep because they're working tomorrow, and on the West Coast, they might be getting ready to crash or whatever. But of course, you can pick this up right on my site and all of the podcasts. If you missed any of them, there's a playlist of my podcast. You can catch all the ones I made that are up there. It's some really good stuff. And again, if you want to read my parody letter to Sean Davis from CNN, go to my website, DaTechGuyblog.com. The post is called CNN Letter to Sean Davis with apologies to Abe Lincoln and Horace Greeley. And like I said, it illustrates this thing. If you look at the media and think in your head, everything they do has only one purpose: to defeat Donald Trump. If you look at why are they doing this? It says, well, because they hate Trump. Then what they do will make sense. And I'm going to close with one more thought. I mentioned Jake Tapper. I want to read you this from Twitchy. And this is titled, Jake Tapper explains why he didn't fact check AOC's lie about President Trump. This morning on CNN's State of the Union, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez repeated the lie that President Trump refuted the coronavirus as a hoax. And a tweet from Abigail Maroney, AOC just repeated the lie that President Trump called the coronavirus a hoax. This is not true, and this has been debunked by numerous fact-checking sources. This would have been a great time for fact-check. He tagged that Jake Tapper on that. Host Jake Tapper later explained that he thought about fact-checking the Queen Socialist, but didn't, because he did call a hoax the coronavirus of those saying that the response from the president was insufficient and was downplaying the gravity of the crisis. And this is Tapper's tweet. I thought about it because the president did not call the virus a hoax, but I didn't because he did call a hoax the concerns of those saying the response from the president was insufficient. He was downplaying the gravity of the crisis. And that too was a lie, which frankly is not. And he's over there. It's tough to justify taking the time for a fact check when it's not taking a stand defending the truth. I guess that's the problem with a politician who lies so often. And while I agree Democrats are mischaracterizing what he said and what he did say was also false, it's tough to justify taking the time for a fact check when it's not taking a stand defending the truth. Now, I think and he's getting a lot of truth. You're cowardly excuse, you're calling out loud, what happened to the media. I knew she lied, but got it, oh well. You 6 months ago would have found the explanation to be bullshit, and that's what's going on. And Stephen Miller of Red Sleeves hits it perfectly. If only the president would stop embellishing things, we would fact check everyone else. A standard of excellence that literally did not exist before January 21st, 2017. And again, it's really bad. And I think the explanation makes Tapper look worse because, in other words, I knew better but decided against it. That's really pretty sad. And if the media wants to know why they're not trusted, this is why. The media deserves everything they've gotten from this administration. In fact, they deserve a lot more. And I'm hoping that this administration gives them a lot more. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to make a prediction here. I've made this prediction before, but I want to make it live again. In 2 months, 3 tops, this is going to be over. The economy is going to boom again. The stock market's going to soar again. In fact, I just bought into the stock market with a new 401k because of it. And people are going to remember the leadership of the president and the recovery that follows. And it's going to be glorious. And the media is just going to shit its pants. Well, again, that's all the time we have. Remember, if you want to find me, DaTechGuyblog.com, DaTechGuyblog.com. Don't forget my writers, the Tech Guys Magnificent 7. We have contributing writers who write on Saturday, on Sunday, on Friday, on Monday, on Tuesday, and on, I think it's, Thursday. So most of the days of the week we have contributors, although we may lose Baldy Lock soon because of the California gig law. We have her through March for sure. After March, it gets iffy. But check us out. Check us out at the blog. Check us out on Twitter, the Tech Guy Blog on Twitter. Check us out on YouTube, the Tech Guy Blog on YouTube. And check out Your Prayer Intentions every Saturday at WQPH 89.3 FM, Shirley Fitchburg, or WQPHradio.org. Delighted to pray for your prayer intentions. Until then, this is Pete the Tech Guy and the Tech Guy's Midnight Court for Monday, March 23rd is officially adjourned.